Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. So thanks again to the folks. There's been a lot of folks commenting on the videos again, and that's been pretty awesome. I'm a huge fan of the give and take of suggestions and people who are liking the content that I'm putting up, and other getting in contact with other you know uh, film fanatics. That to me is what it's all about. And at the end of the day, it's all about the movies. And again, most of the videos I post, they're all based in the exploitation world. Again, which is my favorite genre of all time. But I'm always trying some new things. I have a pretty wide range of tastes. And that goes for music also. So variety is truly this the spice of life. So that's the way it is. I think and it's you always figure out some new things. I find for myself, like lately, it's been really cool as far as you know for me being an artist, if you want to call it that, with my band Quantum. I right now I'm in the midst of I've been booking some more shows, and we've been pretty busy as a band, so it's been really nice. But I've been in some of the downtime, and in my own time, I've been in a really cool space as far as writing new music. So I've talked about this before, but when I'm in that space where I have like, some kernels of ideas or little snippets of something I come up with, in passing, I might come up with like a little melody line or some kind of thing, and it might, capture my interest for a minute. And then sometimes it's pretty rare, but sometimes when I have a melody or come up with something related to that, I'll go steadfast into that space and come up with a song or a structure or at least the skeletal shape of a song pretty relatively quickly. But for the most part, that's pretty rare. Usually, I'll have this thing of where I'll come up these little parts. Whether it's a melody, like even if it's this real simple little chord progression or a couple of lines, some kind of melodic thing, and maybe with that I come up with like a little vocal line or some kind of lyrical thing. Most of the time, I'll have these little pieces and I'll sit on it for weeks, sometimes months, and I'll, you know, slowly develop it here and there, kind of piecemeal it together. And at least the songs that I have, with Quantum, when I look back at that, it all kind of comes out of that weird process. There's a couple of songs. One song that I wrote fairly recently, over the summer, about a year ago now, but that was, and it became this kind of more dance tune, but originally it was this kind of ambient piece. And there were so many permutations of it. It was crazy. Originally, it was more of a kind of a soundtrack, like straight up kind of soundtrack kind of a vibe. And I remember we got it to a place of where we did rehearse it and we played it out live once, and it didn't go over very well. It was kind of a mess, and it wasn't really great. So I ended up scrapping it all together. I had these chords for that I had been working on in the structure, but it was this ambient piece, and I ended up scrapping it all together. And it was weird because that and again, just how my brain processes this whole thing. It was really inspired by Apocalypse Now and the music for that. So we played it out live once, and it was not very good, and I didn't really I ended up throwing it out, basically. And then fast forward, I came up with this other melody line and more of a structure. So then I took that old piece that I had come up with, changed it around, and just added the chords, but put it in this totally different context. And this is this over the span of like probably 4 or 5 months. Suddenly it made sense, and suddenly I had a song. And it was in a totally different context, but it was basically the same chords that I'd been sitting on for a really long time. And suddenly this thing made sense. And then I had a song. And then when I had those parts, it all came together. And then I remember when that happened, it was really funny because we had a gig that weekend and we played it out at this party. And it was great. And it was like, okay, this is a tune. And so that's how the process is. It's totally weird. The other thing that happens for me a lot too when I have these ideas and when I'm kind of focused on a lot of things around new song possibilities, I get even more inspired by the things that I love. And that I find myself, even though I immerse myself in this stuff anyway, music and movies and things like that, I find myself I go even further into that. I dive even more into that space. So it's very interesting. Like, for instance, one new song that I've been writing, I have. It's almost the same kind of situation. I came up with these chords and some lyrics and a melody line and a pretty decent structure. And I had it for a long time, and I was like, "This is cool. Like, this has got a cool vibe to it. There's something here. It's got a nice melody." I even sent a lot of the times too. What I also do during this whole process is even if it's like a shell of an idea, I have a few friends I uh, that I have that I send out those, you know, if you want to call it demo versions of those tracks. I send them out to a couple of friends. They're really good friends, and but the thing that I love about them is that not only they're good friends, but they're really honest about what they think about some of the music, and I've learned a lot from that. And they give me honest feedback. They're not just like, "Oh, that's great," or "This needs more," or this. Or they they just will tell me what they feel about it, and then they'll. And I've had a couple of friends even make suggestions. So or tell me, "Oh, it's not really complete," or maybe this is done. So I do that a lot. I send out music to a little group of friends when I'm in that space, and I get a little bit of feedback. So it's really great. But so I came up with this other structure, and I really liked it. I sat on it for a while. I recorded it. I sent it out to a couple of people. They seemed to like it, but I knew it needed something else. It needed something more. It felt like it was good, but incomplete, and it just needed something else. Whether it was something more complicated or something, just I don't know, some kind of new passage that would kind of tie it together. And I was watching again another thing that was totally inspired by film. And I did a show yesterday on a really incredible movie on this Ryan Gosling movie, um, which I can't remember the name. I can't remember the name of it right now. The name of the movie was The Place Beyond the Pines, which is a Ryan Gosling movie that came out, I believe, in 2011. Really cool movie. I finished it last night. I will say I felt the ending. I did a review of it for the movie yesterday. And I had only seen a movie once years ago, and I really liked it. And I'd forgotten most of it. And then I bought it at the sale that they had at Opera House Video. I bought it on Blu-ray. I got this really great edition of it. And I watched it last night, and then I did a review for it yesterday, and I posted it. I think it's uploaded now, but I it was interesting because I really was into the movie, really into the movie, and it's a longer movie. It's like 2 hours and 30 minutes. So it took me about. I started watching it pretty late at night, so I didn't finish it one night, and then I finished it up last night. And a lot of times, if that happens, if I'm watching a movie and I have to, like, because I'm too tired or whatever, and I can't finish it one night, I will, the next day or the next night, I will watch it. But what I'll do is sometimes I'll watch it from the beginning, especially if I started earlier. But a lot of times, if that doesn't happen, I go back a little bit. I go back maybe 20 minutes, half hour, and then kind of get acclimated with the film. So I did that again last night. One of the things I loved about that film, the direction, the cinematography is incredible. The story is pretty riveting, but the music is amazing. And the music was all composed by Mike Patton from, Faith No More, Mr. Bungle, all his great collaborations with John Zorn and all his numerous projects he's had. I've always been a huge Mike Patton fan. So he did the film score for this, and I was just blown away. And so I started watching it last night. I will have to say, when I got towards the end, my initial feeling was I was kind of let down by it. It was weird. I kind of felt like, because the movie has so much tension and there's so much great um, uh, sense of character development. There's the characters are just really great, and there's all of this. All the characters that you have this empathy for are very complicated. Even Bradley Cooper, who plays the cop, who eventually becomes this district attorney, he's kind of a scumbag. You have all of this empathy for him for a while, but then you realized he kind of lied his way through this whole situation to kind of improve his situation, and just didn't care. He had no, was not even caring about the truth. So there's like this thread of where you start realizing this guy is kind of a scumbag and you don't really like him. And that's what happened to me. And I thought that that was a cool aspect of it because it's a real, kind of gray area. But I thought the way the ending was, all the build up, all the tension, and all of the suspense, and not really seeing or knowing where it was going to go, I kind of felt when it got towards the ending, it was a little bit cheesy, a little bit of a letdown, I will say. The whole thing with the motorcycle. Anybody who's seen the movie, I don't want to give away spoilers, but I just kind of felt it was kind of a letdown and a little bit of you know, a cliched, kind of cheesy way to end the film with him, this character riding off into the sunset on this motorcycle. I don't know, but that's just my thing. So it's kind of weird. So I don't know if I did that review too prematurely. I don't know, but again, I was enamored with the music. The music for that film is just incredible. So I finished watching it, and then later on that day, I started, or earlier in the day yesterday, I again tackled this same song I've been working on for a while, and I came up with this other part, and I started hearing like an imprint in my head of what I was listening to in this movie, the music that was composed by Mike Patton, and I could hear that in my head while I was coming up with this other little part for the song, and suddenly I had this revelation where I was like, "Oh wait, this is it. This is what it needs." And again, totally inspired by film, totally inspired by the film score. So it's a really cool and interesting process, and it doesn't have. It's pretty chaotic. At least for me, it's very chaotic, but I think in a good way. But I can't really be in a place of where I try to. The minute I try to make something happen, or you know. Be making a conscious decision on something, it never works for me. It always has to kind of come into its own thing, like almost a separate voice outside of my brain, which is kind of weird. And it has to like be this organic thing. And then it seems to work. And kind of when to a degree of what, where I have no defenses up against that process. And then suddenly, whenever that happens, and it's random, and sometimes it happens over a long period of time, sometimes it's a very short period of time. But whenever I'm in a space of where I'm not thinking about it, then it happens when it does. So it's a wild process. It's an interesting process. It's kind of a mysterious process too. So today's show is on this wonderful movie. Again, changing things up here as I like to do. Moneyball, starring Brad Pitt. This movie is kind of an extraordinary movie. I love this movie to death. I have seen this movie numerous times. I'm a huge Brad Pitt fan. This was one of the movies of where I've always loved his work, but when this came out, I really started to take to him as an actor and really uh, started to really believe that he has so much ability as an actor and so much depth, and is truly an actor, and I think one of the best of his generation. Uh, it's a tremendous movie, and I think that one of the things that's so cool, and I think that this is a prime time example of just a movie done well, a fabulous example of primetime cinema is the subject matter. For instance, which is about the Oakland A's. It's a baseball movie. It's a sports movie, and anybody who knows me or has talked with me or whatever, no, they all pretty much know that I'm not a sports fan in any way, shape, or form. I have respect for it. My uncle, and my dad, but especially my brother and my dad are football fanatics. They watch all the games, and I have some friends too that are basketball fanatics. I had a weird thing with sports where the only sport I was really obsessed with, and I just kind of got burnt out of it, and I kind of felt it was just kind of stupid. I got really obsessed uh, and really drawn into the world of mixed martial arts a few years ago. I used to watch UFC and Pride and all those things, religiously. I still like some of that stuff, and I was at that time. It's been a very, very long time, but at that time I was training in martial arts, and I was the last few years that I was doing that kind of work. I started to train in the mixed martial arts world, where I was learning like some kickboxing and jujitsu and those kinds of things. And so I was immersed in that kind of world for a long time, and I got really obsessed with watching. But then I just kind of got burnt out, and I kind of just felt it's kind of silly, and I'm like, I'm spending too much time on this. I still like it, but it is what it is. And so that's the only sport that I was really obsessed with. But as far as anything else, I never had taken a big liking to. But the thing is, why I say that this is such a great definition of just a wonderfully made film is that this movie is very, more or less genre specific. It's a sports movie. It's about baseball. It's based on the true accounts of what happened, in the history of baseball. And I feel like when a movie like this grabs me like it does, and especially when I first saw it, and not being a fan of sports in any way, shape, or form, I have respect for them, and whatever. But and for me to still be just totally into this movie and enthralled by this movie, that to me is like what makes a movie a good movie, regardless of the subject, regardless of the genre, regardless of the budget. If it's a good story and it captures your imagination for those couple hours, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if it's a sci-fi movie, a horror movie, a mystery, a crime story, a comedy, some avant-garde film, or a comic book movie, whatever it is. If it's good, it's good. It's going to resonate with you as a viewer, and of course that's all subjective, but it's gonna, I think good movies are gonna stand the test of time when they're really cut from a high quality, you know, uh, way of making that film. And this is such a great example of that. I think there's certain films in other genres that are like that. It doesn't matter. If it's a good film, it's a good film. I think with, say, for instance, for the Marvel movies, I remember going to see the Logan, that movie Logan, with Hugh Jackman, which is essentially a Wolverine movie. I remember seeing that in the theater, and that movie is just amazing. It's just incredible. But I remember at the time I went to the movies. I saw it with my girlfriend at the time, and she was totally not into. She actually hated Marvel movies. She had no idea about any of the X-Men movies, had never seen them, and had no interest. She had a little bit of an interest in the Spider-Man movies, but that was it. She had no interest at all. Didn't know anything about the mythology of the X-Men, and could give a shit about any of those movies. And we went into this movie. I took her to see this movie, to see Logan, and she was blown away by it because she felt it was such a high caliber movie that I remember we talked about after we saw it. It didn't matter what style or what genre it was. It was just so well done and so captivating that it didn't matter. And to me, that's really, every film, everything, even that's a problem with comic book movies, obviously, but there are quite a few that are that strong. That each movie should act as its own standalone alone thing, and it should, garner your attention and drive you to want to see it again, regardless of the genre, like I said, and regardless of, if it's a Marvel movie, for instance, you know, you should be able to go into it cold, and I think that's true testimony of really high art. So, and I think that this movie is an example of that, and it's a captivating movie. I've seen this movie so many times. It came out in 2011. This Blu-ray edition is really awesome. There's all kinds of special features on here, which I've never actually really watched, but one of these days I will. But I've seen this movie countless times. This is a really great edition or rendition of this film on Blu-ray. It's really great quality. It was directed by Bennett Miller, and tremendous story. Tremendous story. The cast is just incredible. Brad Pitt, Jonah Hill, Chris Pratt, Robin Wright, Philip Seymour Hoffman. The thing about this movie is all of these actors that I just mentioned, they're all like very well known Hollywood actors, but they really reinvent themselves on this, in this movie. Like, you don't recognize them. They truly are actors, and they really play these incredibly different roles. Philip Seymour Hoffman, for instance, who plays one of the head coaches, he plays this really kind of reserved character, but he's so great. And Brad Pitt plays this completely different character. Jonah Hill, who's been known to make all of these kind of raunchy comedies, completely amazing in this movie. And and that's the thing, is it. If I can be convinced that this is a great movie and be totally captivated by it, even though it is a genre-specific movie, and it's related to a subject that I don't have any interest in, and it still captivates me, and I want to watch it again and even buy it. To me, that's master filmmaking. Just a tremendous movie. And after this, when this film came out, like I said, I had always liked Brad Pitt quite a bit, but after this film, I started to really pay attention to his career, and I have grown to really love a lot of the movies that he has been in since then. But then it made me also check out, the films before, and realizing how, truly what a talented actor he truly is, and his ability to really transform himself. And that the same goes for, say, Jonah Hill. I've seen him in many other films since then, and the same kind of thing. I just feel like he is a truly good actor. and you can't really typecast either of these guys because they really have the ability to dive deeply into different roles and you don't recognize them, and they don't become, or they're not like parodies of themselves. They're not just relying on, say, one role that established them, where, like, say, Jonah Hill, he's not playing the same character for every movie that he played in Superbad, which is an amazing movie. But he's not playing that same role, and that was like probably his biggest role. Same thing for Brad Pitt. He's not playing, you know, I don't know, like the same character that he played in, say, Meet Joe Black or Seven, which are great movies, especially Seven. But he's not playing that same character. He's like, you don't recognize him. And just an awesome movie. I love this movie to death. I did do a review of this movie on my Facebook Film Fanatic page. I don't think I haven't done a video review of it, but this is the first time. But tremendous movie. A really great drama, and it's very intense. It's gripping as all hell. The conclusion to this movie is so great. It's not, I feel like it's not ham-handed at all. And again, it's got a very melancholy kind of vibe to it. It's got a lot of hope and it's got a lot of inspiration, but it's very realistic. And of course, obviously, this movie is based on a real life story, but it's very realistic. It's not really, I don't know, a pretty ending. It has a complex ending, and that's what I really loved about this movie and the story itself, because it's very human. So again, Moneyball. Definitely check this out. Tremendous, tremendous movie. One of the best from 2011. So thanks again. This is Jason Dean, and we will see you next time. Peace.